Okay, no worries. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to attend this session. My name's Kim Connor. I'm National Head of Psychological Services here at the ProCare Group, and it's my pleasure to talk to you today about your EAP program. As we commence, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet here today for this webinar and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their ongoing cultures and connections to land and water. For those who are not familiar with ProCare, we're a national insurance services provider with expertise across injury management, NDIS, claims investigations, claims management services, legal services, forensics and recoveries. And for the purposes today, we're really pleased to be part of the UAC service offering for your profession as part of your professional membership and be your EAP service provider for UAC members. This session is intended to really just give you an overview of the UAC Employee Assistance Program, and it's really about helping you understand what's available and how to use it effectively. I was just saying to Daniela, and sorry, thanks also to Daniela for facilitating this session and for Jenny Bax as well. But I was just saying this session was locked out to be an hour. I promise you it won't take an hour. I'll probably give you 30 minutes back on your day as well. But yeah, thanks so much for jumping on today. So I want to begin with mental health and the mental health continuum. This little diagram on the screen, just to start off, is just a reminder, I suppose, that mental health isn't static. We don't either have good mental health or bad mental health, and people very much move between stages. You can see on this diagram, where you can be healthy, and then move to unsettled, to struggling, and sometimes into crisis, and then back again into healthy. And as leaders, you're often the first person actually to notice when someone is shifting along the continuum. In this unsettled phase, you might see early signs like stress, people being more anxious, more moody, and recognising and I guess addressing some of these stages early is really key to everyone's well-being. If someone's struggling, they might find it really more difficult to cope with the challenges of everyday life. And then if someone is in crisis, that's really where that urgent support is needed, and it's where that timely intervention becomes really quite critical. Importantly, with the right support and resources, it really is possible to move back from that struggling or crisis state back into that healing state and eventually into that healthy state. So EAP is very much designed to support people at any point along that continuum. It's just not when someone is in that crisis state. Early support is really one of the most important things to maintaining well-being. And for those who are managers on the line or people leaders, or we're all someone's peer or we're all someone's colleague, our role isn't to diagnose, it isn't to fix, but we all play an absolutely critical role in terms of helping people recognise when support might be needed. And by having the courage to ask how someone is doing and to checking in with them and knowing where you can direct people to, that's a really powerful and important impact that you can have in someone's life. So a few facts and figures that I'll just cover off super quickly. I'm sure a lot of you on the line have seen some of these numbers floated around before. We talk about 1 in 5 Australians aged between 16 to 85 experiencing a mental illness in any year. For Australian employers spend on average about around 11 billion is spent in the cost of untreated mental illness, and that's things like your absentees and presentees and reduced productivity, of course your compensation claims. So and all those numbers are absolutely increasing. Mental illness is now the leading cause of sick leave and absence and long-term working capacity. And Beyond Blue stats tell us that 45% of people will experience mental illness in their lifetime. And you know, the numbers are very much around that 1 in 7 people will experience depression, 1 in 4 Australians will experience an anxiety condition in their lifetime. Sadly, 9 lives are lost to suicide every day. But one of the things to be really mindful of, and perhaps on a more positive note, is that people do get better with early treatment and the right sort of support and assistance. So I think, you know, part of sharing stats is really just a way of highlighting the prevalence of mental ill health in our community. And EAP is one strategy that can be used to support people. It's certainly not the answer to all things, but it's definitely often what we see is that it's sometimes a person or an employee's first engagement or first step towards help-seeking behaviour and getting the supports they need. So in terms of an employee assistance program, one of the things to be really, you know, and I guess if you take away 1 or 2 things from this session is that EAP is a confidential service and it is there to help people with both personal and work-related concerns. You can see that under an EAP service, there's a wide range of areas that we can provide assistance in. It can be from anxiety to stress, for depression or mood disorders, through to relationship issues, grief, trauma, sleep concerns. It can also provide support, or we can also provide support for things like adjustment to illness or injury, or it may be the starting of some information and education and guidance of where to get external support and assistance for some of those really complex challenges around addiction, gambling, etc. I think the thing with an EAP, it's important to sort of recognise that it isn't just for major issues. It can be used really proactively and before things escalate. And certainly, from my perspective, encouraging people to access EAP early before problems really do escalate and get more into that struggling crisis state is ideal. So I guess bottom line is if something is impacting you, it can be appropriate to use EAP for some guidance and for assistance. There will be people online today who are managers, of course, and I guess as managers, it can not only assist you for your own personal issues, but it can also help support you from what we call a manager assist perspective. So we provide support coaching to managers to help deal with some of those psychological issues that do present in the workplace and to help you support staff needs. So we can provide coaching, we can provide conversation and give you some support around staff support strategies, where to go, where to direct, how to have the conversations. We can provide support around interpersonal conflict. We also, outside of an EAP program, have accredited mediators to help you negotiate or have those facilitated discussions around workplace conflict, provide resources and information, and also just some guidance and support in terms of how to have wellbeing conversations. So do keep in mind that EAP is not only just to assist personal issues that you may be having or work-related challenges, but it can be there to assist you from a manager perspective. Accessing EAP is really very simple and it is designed to be easy. Staff can self-refer. They don't need approval from a manager. They don't need to be coming into you and saying, can I access the EAP services? Appointments can typically be arranged really quickly and flexibly. And it's really important to emphasise that it's voluntary, that people opt in to these services. There's a couple of ways people contact us. They either ring us directly, and at which point we triage the call, assess their needs, prioritise their needs, allocate them to an appropriate counsellor, psychologist. Some people, however, prefer not to pick up the phone. Some people prefer to send an email, at which point we respond via those means. Our triage line, we are 8:30 to 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, Monday to Friday, and we also have a triage line that we cover on the weekend as well. Typically for some people as well, as part of that triage process, we may offer an appointment the next day, we may offer an appointment in the next week. It really is about matching the person's needs with the appropriate consultant and fitting in around work diaries, commitments, all of that sort of thing. The other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of you will also be from organisations that have your own EAP, particularly if you're coming from one of the larger organisations. So this is certainly not intended to replace that, but this is absolutely a service for UAC members who may not have an existing EAP as part of their own workplace offerings. One of the things that is really helpful, I suppose, for us, for any UAC staff or member that's contacting our services, is for them to identify that they're part of the UAC EAP service offering. Speaking to Daniela earlier, I think there's something like 100 plus 130 underwriting agencies as part of that UAC group. Obviously, from our end, that's quite a difficult thing if someone rings up and gives the name of a specific underwriting agency that we may not be familiar with. So if people can call and say, I'm accessing as part of a UAC offering, it certainly makes life much easier from our end, and it just ensures we get services set up as appropriate. The other thing to mention is that under your EAP program, you have access to 3 counselling sessions with us. So it is certainly a brief intervention and a brief support service, and sometimes that's all some people will need. Other times we will use those sessions to help guide as to where else they can go. So we'll give immediate psychological support, psychological first aid, some psychoeducation, some strategies to assist. But for some of those more complex, long-standing issues, which obviously present, we certainly help guide people on where to go for that additional support service. So it might be just the start of some help-seeking assistance that people are tapping into via us. One of the most commonly asked questions that we get when people are accessing an EAP is it confidential? And the answer is yes, of course, to that. EAP is completely confidential. Like I mentioned before, an individual doesn't need to tell their manager, doesn't need to tell their employer, it does not need to be logged anywhere. Of course, the only caveat to that is if we are working with someone who is disclosing high-risk behaviours, so self-harm or suicide behaviours, we obviously, from a safety and from an obligation perspective, may need to breach privacy confidentiality in those scenarios to ensure that the individual's safety is maintained. So, of course, that's of key priority and key importance. Apart from that, though, in terms of what information do we capture, what information is sent back to UAC, it's pretty high level, and it is, as this slide indicates, the number of people that have contacted the service, the number of sessions that we've provided, the states from which they're coming, and a split around purpose of contact. So even that is really high level. So it's personal family issues, work-related issues, or a manager assist. So it gives some insight into who is coming to us, but nothing that could ever drill down to a particular organisation or individual. So that's pretty critical from our end. In terms of when to suggest EAP, there are some common signs that where it might be helpful. You might see some of those more overt behaviours where people are emotionally distressed. They may be appearing highly anxious in presentation, body language. They may be telling you that they're feeling some distress. You may notice withdrawal, irritability. You might notice from a manager perspective or a team member perspective, some declining performance or productivity, perhaps some increased conflict. You may hear or may know of a critical incident that may be work or non-work related, and some things such as increased absences or presenteeism might be other signs that EAP could be a suitable option. And again, it's really important that EAP should be positioned as a supportive voluntary option, and importantly, it's not in any way a corrective measure. In terms of how to approach the conversation, on this slide is just a pretty simple approach. It's about asking someone if they're okay, preferably somewhere, be mindful of where you are, so preferably somewhere private and informal, and using appropriate language as well, caring language such as thanks for talking with me, I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I've noticed a change in the last couple of weeks. You don't seem to be yourself, or you're not as satisfied. You seem to be like you're under a lot of pressure at the moment. Is everything okay? Be mindful of your body language. Try and be as open and relaxed, and show empathy, and almost just putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Just stop and reflect. If it was someone asking me a similar question or checking in with me, what would I want if I was I was on the receiving end of that? The next point is really to listen without judgment. Just really guide the conversation with caring questions. Give them time to reply. You don't have to rush to solve problems. You don't have to have all the answers. And I guess our role is sometimes just to say, look, there are supports available. Do you know that under our UAC membership, we have access to an EAP line? Is that something that you might find helpful? Other staff have found it helpful. If you're willing to show and you have had access with EAP or accessing mental health services yourself, sometimes managers might choose to share a little bit, show a little bit of vulnerability, and I guess it's all about just reassuring that getting help and assistance is a good thing to do. It's a healthy thing to do. It's a productive thing to do. The other thing, at any point, if you're having a wellbeing or a check-in conversation with someone, is it's not a one and done scenario. If you've had the conversation, a person's opened up and shared a little bit of their personal information with you, and you've been effectively in that privileged position, really important to check back in. You're not checking back in as to whether they've accessed the EAP, remembering that that's confidential, but you're checking back in to just go, checking in on how they're doing, how they're coping. Are there other supports? How can I best support you? And of course, the individual may actually choose to share what follow-up actions they've done, but they also may not, and certainly that's okay as well. But that check-in is really important. So what can you do from here? There's a few simple things you can do, important steps you can take. First and foremost is look after your own wellbeing. EAP is there for you too. I think sometimes we're very good at caring for other people, putting other people's needs ahead of ours, but taking time out to care for yourself and your own wellbeing more broadly is first and foremost, and also accessing the services and supports that perhaps we might encourage someone else to access is always a good thing. Promote it within your teams, with your colleagues. Maybe you have a team meeting where there's an opportunity to say, hey, I've just been to this session online. You may or may not know, under our UAC membership, we have access to EAP services. Just letting you know, I'm going to put the flyer on the fridge or on a SharePoint, however you'd like to do it and what's appropriate within your organisation, but feel comfortable promoting it. Do reflect on the use of Manager Assist. If you're not sure, you're worried about someone, not sure to have the conversation, pick up the phone, give us a call, and we're happy to give you some guidance on that. Create the safe space where people feel okay to use it, and reassure people that it is actually 100% confidential and they don't have to pay for it themselves. Funding mental health services can be expensive. There's also a lot of really good accessible services out there, but sometimes people think that might be the barrier, of course, to accessing services. So letting people know that it's a fully funded service for them. And that's it from me. So that was a pretty quick session. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be very happy to take them. Thank you.
Just hold for a couple of minutes. If anybody does have any questions, please pop them into the chat.
And of course, if no one has questions, that's perfectly fine. Of course, you've got the contact information. There is a flyer. Feel free to shoot us an email. Shoot me an email. I keep a close eye on that chat box, or on our EAP inbox rather. Of course, so feel free to send a message, and I'm happy to have a chat to you individually at any time.